All right, welcome back everybody to First CSP, channel dedicated to bringing you the first Council Shoulder Patch issue from every council in Scouting America, both past and present. Episode 7 here, we're going to take a look at Washington Trail. Washington Trail Council was formed as a name change in 1944, formerly Erie County, and then existed up until 1972 when it merged with Colonel Drake and Custalouga to form French Creek 532. Obviously, with CSPs beginning in 1970 and this council then merging out in 1972, there was not a lot of time to produce CSPs there, and we are left with just one issue for Washington Trail. So let's take a look at that here. We'll head over to the patch table. So we've got a twill-based patch. You can see the red twill as the background here. This is listed as a, I believe, bright light tan border and lettering. It is defined in the center here as a Type 1 fleur-de-lis. You'll see that the fleur-de-lis going behind Washington's head is all completely horizontal. So Type 1 is when you just have one direction for the sewing to make the fleur-de-lis. And Type 2 is where you would have the multiple directions of sew to create the fleur-de-lis. So just a Type 1 fleur-de-lis in the center there, and that is covered by a dark blue Washington head. We have a listing that there were 4,350 of these made, so it's not super rare. It is particularly a cloth back. As you can see, we flip it over here. We have our little sticker that we've labeled it with. And then this is, again, a cloth back. You see this weave type pattern on older produced CSPs. We don't see the kind of waffle weave or whatever on more modern CSPs, but it doesn't necessarily give you an age indication, but we do see it on lots of the older ones. So just one CSP here for Washington Trail. But we do have that this was reproduced by the national office at a later time. I don't have the timing on that, but we do have an example of that reproduction. And this was an official reproduction produced by the national office, and it's a really, really good match to the original first issue. Now again here, one of the key differences between the two, if we do flip this over, this one does have a plastic. It's very thin, but it does have a plastic back. You can probably pick that up a little bit on the microphone, whereas we wouldn't get that sound on the cloth back. I put these up next to each other. So there's the reproduction at the bottom. Here is the original at the top. Again, the twill background in red looks very, very good. The color match on the original and the reproduction, very, very good. Again, the reproduction also has the same horizontal, in this case, Type 1 fleur-de-lis, so just one direction of sew for the fleur-de-lis there. And one of the reasons I wanted to do Washington Trails for this episode is because of that reproduction. Now, we've talked about on the channel reproductions once before, and that was the very first episode. We had the national samples that were produced in 1970 and sent out to the councils, and then we had the official national reproduction in 1977. I don't actually know, because there is no listing here in the collection guide on when this national reproduction for Washington Trail was produced, but we do have at least a listing in the collection guide that it exists. And one of the things that I wanted to talk briefly about for those of you that may be wanting to get into collecting or are already collectors is the fact that reproductions within Council Shoulder patches do exist. Some of them, like the national samples and the one that we see here for Washington Trail, are official national reproductions. And then there are times when there are unofficial reproductions, which most people would generally label as fakes. When there are rare or scarce patches, or really in any collecting pursuit, when there's things that are rare or come in limited fashion and the value with those is usually associated as higher there is an incentive for people that um, are not honest and trustworthy to try and take advantage of that and produce fakes, produce unauthorized reproductions. Uh, Generally, for most of the well-known fakes that exist on usually patches that you would expect are very high dollar value, I would just always caution that you take a lot of care and make sure that you're trying to identify that you have an authentic and genuine item and it's not a fake or an unauthorized reproduction. There are a lot of tools and resources for CSP collectors where you can look at uh, genuine, verified, authentic pieces and then hopefully make comparisons. There are the collection guides, which often will give you additional information to be able to see where the difference is, and they'll describe those to you between what the original authentic piece is and what a reproduction might be. And you really need to be wary that just because someone, even people that are well intentioned and honest people, may have reproductions that they don't realize that's what it is. So you never just want to take somebody's word that they're telling you that it's, this issue, I know it's the first issue, or I know it's, this very famous rare that only had four that exist or something like that. Actually, that's one of the things that happens with Washington Trail. There were four um, TA patches that we know in existence. Those were not reproductions, actually, they were manufacturer samples for this patch. And they're very extremely sought after. We only know of four that exist. I've never seen one, but there's a description in the guide for those. And, because it's one of those highly valued things, could someone have come along and also tried to then fake that later? Sure. So just want to take a little bit of time in this episode for people who are collectors or maybe want to become collectors to be very wary, especially on high dollar items where someone's trying to tell you it's very valuable, it's very rare, and it's going to be a lot of money. That you need to be very careful and do your due diligence. Ask other people in the collecting space who have been collecting a long time, get their opinion before just putting out lots of money for something that might not end up being genuine or authentic. And I think it's worth stressing that the people who are selling that may not know that what they have is a fake. They collected it a long time ago. It was something that was produced a long time ago, even as a fake, potentially, that kind of thing. So I just want to take a little time, use this episode not only to show you Washington Trail, but talk about that and give word of caution, because I do hope that some of this video series inspires people to start collecting. You're going to find that CSPs in general, because they make thousands of them for most issues, whether it's a first issue or others, are usually relatively inexpensive to collect. And I would definitely encourage finding some aspect of scouting memorabilia if you're interested to collect. It's a really fun hobby, and I really recommend that people take part, but also just do so with caution, especially if you start getting to what would be higher dollar, higher value items. All right, with that, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and we'll catch you on the next episode.